So, what I'm inviting you into today is to reclaim the power of pleasure. And if you notice or have been paying attention to what I'm saying, it's like through allowing your body to experience pleasure, ecstasy, right? To be in your arrows, that you actually have the power to heal, and not only to heal the body, but to heal on a mental, emotional layer, to heal on a spiritual level. And what I'm feeling into, it's like through allowing your body to feel safety in pleasure and to expand the capacity for pleasure, it is like you essentially are allowing yourself to come back into wholeness. And I think you can kind of see why this has been so heavily demonized, right? Because if we have this ability to heal, to awaken, to ascend, to open up our ability to be in receptivity and connection with our God spark, with divine, then we are truly in our power, right? We're in our power to be an absolute creator of our lives. And somebody who is truly in alignment with their power, with their authenticity, isn't somebody that is easy to control, to manipulate, right? So you can kind of see why this disconnection is constantly perpetuated through time over and over and over again. Why we're taught to hide our pleasure, that sex is something to be ashamed of, that our sensuality is too much, okay? Um, it is because this is absolutely where our power exists. This is how we tap back into our senses, how we tap back into the divinity that exists in the body, in the bones, in the DNA. Okay. It is like essentially by connecting back to our pleasure that we open up portals to the divine, to the unseen, and to our Christ selves and our Christ consciousness. Welcome back to the Shadow Priestess Embodied. I'm your host, Kaylin Rakowski, and thank you for joining me today for another deep dive and exploration into your inner world, into your body, the shadow realms, where we will begin to explore some of these esoteric principles and really begin to drop them down into modern day application and embodiment. This is a sacred place where you can begin to truly meet yourself, meet your medicine, and to meet your magic. This is a place of remembrance. Take a deep breath and let's begin. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Shadow Priestess Embodied. So today I want to dive into one of the more taboo topics, the topic that nobody wants to talk about, the thing that we're all doing, but God forbid we ever speak about it. And I think you get where I'm going with this. Let's talk about sex, okay? And not really sex literally. However, I want to speak to you guys about sexual energy, our eros, okay? And how our pleasure can actually be a pathway to healing. And I really am coming to the understanding of how our bodies can begin to process, heal, and release trauma through our relationship with our sexuality. And I think some of you may know that, I have been taking some space recently in my life. And even before I decided to slow down, I was really getting this pull to make a pivot in my own business and how I work with clients. And instead of just working with feminine energy and applying that to entrepreneurship, business, bringing some more of these spiritual and esoteric principles into like mindset and embodiment and things like that, I really am feeling the call in my own self to begin leading more with a pleasure-led life. And some of you know, some of you don't. Some of you are new to my world. If you are, hello, welcome. I hope we can become friends. If you've known me for a while, welcome back. And I am about all things energetics, okay? I believe that we approach the non-physical, right? We approach things on a spiritual level, a mental, emotional level. That is really the doorway to cultivate change. And through that journey, you know, with my quantum healing and somatic practices, I've really noticed that there is such a better way to address trauma, to address these different energetic blockages, whether it be past life, karmatic, ancestral, collective, whatever way you want to look at it. The doorway to experiencing more of our God spark, more of our essence, more of our radiance, right, is through the body. It is through increasing our capacity to sit with and be with pleasure. And as we begin to allow more pleasure to flow into our life, into our body, okay, in allowing our body to be in these ecstatic states, to be in these pleasurable states, you then begin to open up these different pockets in the body, in the nervous system that are trapped, right? You begin to move this trapped energy, these emotions, these traumas, okay, these imprints. And as we begin to uproot them and release the seals through pleasure, we then actually are able to access our own soul blueprint, our dormant DNA, those crystalline light codes that exist in the body. And we get to do that through pleasure. So before we dive into any of that, I think we really need to start with what trauma really is. So trauma essentially is a fracture or disconnection from one's essence. And when we talk about essence, we're talking about that radiance, right? That divine spark, that electromagnetic signature that you and only you came here to be. Okay. It is your essence or your soul, however you want to put it. And it is when we essentially get disconnected or fracture in that, and parts of that essence get trapped or locked away across different time, space, events, relationships, etc. And it's so important to remember that the trauma really isn't the thing, okay? It's not my dad passing away. It's not going through a bad breakup. It is what happens inside of the body, okay? It is those imprints. It is that charge that gets locked in their nervous system, okay? And I'm sure so many of you heard the saying, like, the issue lives in the tissues, right? We've all heard that, but this is what that means. It's not about the event, it's about the energy that gets trapped in the nervous system and then begins to wreak havoc on our lives until we begin to address the body, okay? So, one of my titles that I carry, I guess you could say, I don't even like approaching it this way, but just hear me out. So I got trained as a somatic practitioner. And as I got trained in somatics, that is when I really began to notice that so much of like the NLP or the mindset work really isn't where the gold lies, isn't really where the transformation can happen. So when I'm talking about somatics, I'm really talking about taking a body-based approach to your healing. So we do this through something called somatic experiencing. And really, it's this body-centered approach to treating PTSD, treating trauma. So instead of focusing only on the thoughts that are present or emotions associated with that certain event, we really began to expand and draw our awareness from the bottom up, right, to the body and its natural somatic responses. So here we're really beginning to address the nervous system, right? The sensation in the body versus whatever story or whatever meaning that you begin to put on your healing. And it is really through this that you can begin to expand your capacity, because until you address the body, until you address the subconscious, it's like you can't consciously create or cultivate any real change in your life. Your body has to go first. Your body has to feel safe in this new way of being. So if you are someone who has a lot of trauma, who has a lot of emotion, who has a lot of energy in the body. Maybe you're in a state of hypervigilance and you're constantly in fight or flight. The best way to begin relaxing the nervous system with down regulating and to really expand the capacity, to expand that window of tolerance, is by allowing your body to sit with and be with pleasure, because it doesn't have to be about re-traumatizing or going into the thing. Catharsis can really happen because we are allowing our nervous system to fully be in pleasure, to down regulate and to relax in a way that we can begin to actually have access to more of our essence, to more of our divine DNA, to more of our soul blueprint that right now is flooded or blocked with these different energetic charges, emotions, seals, traumas, etc. So, what I'm inviting you into today is to reclaim the power of pleasure. And if you notice or have been paying attention to what I'm saying, it's like through allowing your body to experience pleasure, ecstasy, right? To be in your arrows, that you actually have the power to heal, and not only to heal the body, but to heal on a mental, emotional layer, to heal on a spiritual level. And what I'm feeling into, it's like through allowing your body to feel safety and pleasure and to expand the capacity for pleasure, it is like you essentially are allowing yourself to come back into wholeness. And I think you can kind of see why this has been so heavily demonized, right? Because if we have this ability to heal, to awaken, to ascend, to open up our ability to be in receptivity and connection with our God spark, with divine, then we are truly in our power, right? We're in our power to be an absolute creator of our lives. And somebody who is truly in alignment with their power, with their authenticity, isn't somebody that is easy to control, to manipulate, right? So you can kind of see why this disconnection is constantly perpetuated through time over and over and over again. Why we're taught to hide our pleasure, that sex is something to be ashamed of, that our sensuality is too much, okay? Um, it is because this is absolutely where our power exists. This is how we tap back into our senses, how we tap back into the divinity that exists in the body, in the bones, in the DNA. Okay. It is like essentially by connecting back to our pleasure that we open up portals to the divine, to the unseen, and to our Christ selves and our Christ consciousness. So it's like you are opening up these different portal ways between you and the divine, you and these inner planes, by moving pleasure, by moving that divine eros, that life force, that desire through your body, allowing yourself to just be in these ecstatic states where it's not like using someone else's body to masturbate or just having like a big climax as the end goal. It's about training your body, your nervous system to live in these orgasmic states, to live in these ecstatic states where we're really returning home to our bodies, to our bliss, to our essence. And as we begin to allow more pleasure in our lives, as we use these states and practices, they begin to open up our channels of receptivity, creativity, surrender, and our ability to be so deeply connected to our own soul and our own inner guidance, right? It's like the deepest levels of healing, ascension, and connection essentially take place here. And I think through training our bodies, through training our nervous systems, right, that pleasure is safe. It's like we shift more into the divine feminine, right, where it's not about chasing or forcing, it's about surrendering, allowing, and inviting. So it's not about just trying to have an orgasm. That's not what I mean by using pleasure to heal trauma. It's not about that. It's about you becoming an orgasmic man or woman. It is about you becoming the most potent magnetic frequency that allows you to connect with your essence, right? And to experience and to really create a life that is in flow, that is in ease, that feels juicy. Okay. And this is really how it feels when you begin to lead with your divine feminine, when you lead from pleasure, when you live from desire. It's like you use this sexual energy, the sexual power as a doorway to the divine and to be an absolute creator, creatrix of your life. And, if you think about this like on a somatic lens, right, on a nervous system level, when you are in the greatest amounts of pleasure, think about it. You are also in the deepest surrender, the deepest receptivity. Okay. So as you train your body in this, you also are using this to expand your capacity to be in receptivity, right? To be in pure surrender, which is the absolute sweet spot to be in, to be a creator, right? Where it's not about trying to create from the mind, but it's letting go of the ego completely, right? It's dropping out of your mind and really reconnecting you with your body, with your intuition, okay? With the innate wisdom that you carry, that's always there, that so many of us fail to listen to on a day to day basis. So, through cultivating these different pleasure practices, we also are reconnecting ourselves with our intuition, with our wombs, with our bodies. And there has been so many studies that have shown that self-pleasure or pleasure practices are actually a deeper form of meditation. And this is really because, think about it, you guys, it's going to clear your mind. It's going to calm your nervous system, while increasing feelings of self-love, connection. And like I said, it completely dissolves the ego. It drops you into the present moment. So, as we allow ourselves to experience pleasure, to expand our capacities for pleasure, it also teaches us how to be fully anchored in the present moment, to stop living in the future, to stop going back into the past, but to be fully anchored here and now. Because truthfully, the only moment you have is now, okay? So it's really about how we can begin creating pleasure and allowing the pleasure to move and expand through our bodies. And it's like this movement and expansion that invites in the divine feminine, right? And as we allow this pleasure to move and to expand in our body, it also drops us into the most primal parts of our intuition, of our truth. So it's almost like this recalibration, this energetic shift gets to happen because we are expanding the capacity for pleasure in our bodies, in our nervous system, which is also embodying, surrender and opening up the deepest levels of receptivity, which, you know, it's so important on a nervous system level for our bodies to learn that it's safe to be in our feminine, to surrender, to receive. Okay. So think about, you guys, like the most intense orgasm of your life you've ever had. You are in the deepest surrender and the deepest receptivity. It's like your heart, your womb, it's like everything is open. So it's like through these practices, we learn how to surrender and receive in all areas of our life. We are holistic beings. So how we are in one area is how we are in everything. So if you can begin training your body, training your nervous system that it's safe to feel pleasure, that it's safe to feel joy, that it's safe to feel ecstasy, that it's safe to feel sensual. It's like you then almost like practice or teach yourself or give yourself evidence that, like, hey, this way of being is safe. Okay. So the way I look at it, it's like our pleasure practices equal like our pleasure capacity. It's like how much pleasure that we allow ourselves to receive on an individual level is the same amount of pleasure we're able to receive on the external. Okay. So again, it's like, how can we begin amplifying pleasure in the body, expanding our capacities to be in and sit with pleasure, which for so many of us, that doesn't feel safe, right? Like we're taught that it isn't safe. So many of us are walking around in a state of fight or flight or hypervigilance. And it's like we are more familiarized with being in a state of like fear or chaos, that when things feel good or feel joyous to us, it's like we try to almost like self-sabotage or self-protect because feeling that good isn't safe. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about, training our bodies that this way of being is safe, that it is desired. And it's like the more that we can cultivate this practice, it teaches us how to hold pleasure in our lives, in our relationships, in our business. Okay. It's an extremely powerful practice. And I will say that, like, as I see it, like pleasure and purpose almost go hand in hand. It has to start in the body. Okay. Because when you're truly in pleasure, it's like you are in fulfillment, you are in joy, right? And you need those things to feel purpose, right? You need that full mind, body, and soul alignment. So as you start these practices, I want you to just begin just noticing how safe or how much pleasure can I allow in my body, and allowing yourself to sit with it, not trying to fix it or change it or make it anything else, like just sitting with it, witnessing it. Okay. And how long can you truly sit and be in joy, be in pleasure, be in ecstasy, be in fulfillment? And noticing, like, if you can sit there for a while, can you expand it? Can you move it through the body? You know, where in your body are you feeling it? How does it feel? And can you surrender to it just a little bit more? As you cultivate these practices and it's something that you start doing every day, it's like, can you intensify the experience in your body? Can you intensify the pleasure through breath, through sound, right? Through movement? It's like keep drawing awareness to the energy, sending this energy, and it begins to just expand into this most like delicious energy and moving into all these areas of the body. Okay. So I want you to think that your pleasure, allowing pleasure in your life, pleasure practices is really inviting you back to reclaim your power. It's like every time that you can expand the capacity for pleasure in the body, it's like you are releasing the old programming, conditioning, traumas, imprints, anything that keeps you from your essence. So as you invite more of this aliveness, this desire into your body, you reconnect with your radiance. Okay. So not only are you healing and releasing the trauma, the stuck energy, the bioki in the body, you also are inviting in more of your own divine spark, your God spark, your radiance, all through cultivating a sense of pleasure, joy, ecstasy in your life. And I know to some of you that feels fucking terrifying, right? And some of you are like, yeah, that's not for me. I promise you, Queen, like this is the path of the sacred feminine, of your divine feminine, of your womb, of your magic. It's going to come through a reclamation of the power of your pleasure and allowing yourself to be there. And if you don't know where to start, I want you to just put a hand on your heart, put a hand on your womb, and just breathe. Opening your mouth, inhaling through the mouth, exhaling through the mouth. And seeing if you can draw that awareness, that breath to your womb, to your pussy, and asking her what she wants. And just waking up to the aliveness, to the desire, to the eros that exist in the bones in the body. And it's like the more that you can cultivate this connection, the more that you can allow her to be expressed, allowing her to be seen, to be witnessed, letting her know that it's safe, she will begin communicating with you what she needs, what she wants, and what she desires. But it's first you saying yes to trusting yourself, to trusting your intuition, and allowing yourself to feel good, allowing the most juicy, orgasmic, like pleasurable life, and saying yes to it because you deserve it. It literally is your birthright. Pleasure is the portal to healing. It is the portal way back home into your power. So, what I want to leave you with today or invite you into is a little challenge. So, just let's say for the next week, month, like whatever feels aligned to you, can you commit to a daily pleasure practice? And I know some of you are cringing as I say this, so don't feel like you have to jump right into having that be expressed through self pleasure. Maybe that's something you work your way up to. I highly recommend it, but start with what feels aligned and what you can actually take that like little like 1% action into doing. You know, a pleasure practice could look like you slowing down and just fully enjoying the food that you eat. It could be through ecstatic dancing and movement, right? Any type of thing that feels joyous to you, that feels pleasurable, that feels good to the mind, to the body, to the nervous system, that is a pleasure practice, right? Because what we're trying to do here is normalize the safety or experience of pleasure in the body so that we can begin expanding the capacity for you to experience that in your internal and external reality. So, just for the next week, month, whatever feels good to you, regularly committing to exploring pleasure every day. And it can be as long or as short as you want. And just try it on for a week and just see what happens, okay? And no one needs to know what you're doing. Like, this is just for you. And the whole idea behind this is that you approach each practice in a way that is both mindful and, most importantly, embodied. So, for pleasure, it is this container by which we are inviting more presence, meaning, and beauty in our lives, okay? And we get to do this by simply saying yes and tuning into our desires, our longings, what our bodies, what our pussies, like what they are wanting, and truly beginning to live a pleasure lived life. So I hope you take this challenge, do it for you, just for you. And if this is something you're interested in exploring, I am offering a class called Woman, and it is going to be this invitation into womb work and exploring divine eros. And it's going to be one part teaching inquiry, and the next second half will be an energetic transmission that I will be doing to clear and to heal the womb space. And I do have a few more things coming up the pipeline, as well as I'm always offering one-on-one private teachings. And I will be opening my group mastermind emergence, where I will be diving into all things sexuality, sensuality, trauma, and how we get to really transmute this to live our most juicy existence. Okay. So I hope you guys found this pleasurable and have an absolutely incredible day. Thank you so much for joining me today for another juicy episode of Shadow Priestess Embodied. I absolutely love diving in and having these conversations with you all. If this is an episode that you found intriguing, that you found some nuggets in, please share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe and follow me so you can be present for all of the upcoming transmissions, activations, and downloads that I will be bringing to our community. Have an absolutely magical day, and I'll see you soon.